Hi, in this lecture, I'm going to give an overview of the Doctor of Organizational Leadership and Innovation doctoral project types. I'm Andrew Sears, the president of City Vision University. Now, we have a really innovative approach to doctoral projects. We've actually adapted a program that was developed by one of our board members, Jay Gary, and he, with his permission, encouraged us to replicate and model our program and adapt it into our context. And the idea is that in the doctoral project, we want it to be something that is really useful to you and your extended community. A lot of doctoral dissertations, people spend, hundreds, thousands of hours on them, and then they get read by 10 or 20 people because they're written in some sort of arcane academic ease. And that is not what we want to do. We're about transforming lives. We're about transforming the world in Jesus' name. And we want to enable you to do that without as many barriers as we can eliminate. We want to take those out. So we have 9 different types. So a book is, possibly the most straightforward, and there, you design, the book for whatever audience. It could be, a workshop, and this would be substantial. So it'd be something like, say, you decide you're going to do a 2-day workshop on something to train people, a curriculum. So there, you might be training faculty. So kind of you're developing a teach the teacher type program. A learning management system, so that would be more like an online course, equivalent of that. Org intervention, so that's where you want to have some sort of change that's going to happen in your organization, and you can have phases and representations. Applied research is really more of a traditional dissertation where you're going to do a literature review and write more of an academic dissertation or something along those lines. A startup plan could be a nonprofit startup, a business plan, and ultimately, we're not just interested in having you write a document. We're interested in you engaging with the market and actually trying to start something up. And then you can combine 2 types, so a workshop or ebook, or hybrid is multiple. It could be 3 different types if you want. So now there's common deliverables across all doctoral projects. So each doctoral project is going to have project specific deliverables, and those are going to be due in Org 893 Module 1. So there's 3 doctoral project courses, 891, 892, and 893. And the review of literature is actually due right at the very beginning. So you should be, thinking about that as you go throughout, and be collecting literature you might want to have in your literature review. And the idea behind your project and the literature review, as I've explained to you before, is the literature review is a pretty major aspect of your overall project, but that is done in academic culture. And your project is done, and we try to have a culture, whatever culture it is that you're trying to serve. Ultimately, you're going to need to turn that in right at the very beginning of your doctoral project course in Module 2. So you're also required to do an IRB application. So that's a review board for research. And if you decide to actually do research that involves, subjects where there needs to be a review, then you'd have to provide ongoing documentation for that. We encourage most students to select options where you're not involving test subjects, because honestly, the amount of work that takes is probably going to be more work than the rest of your doctoral projects. Just to be keeping track of that, it'll probably double the work. So just think about that if you're going to involve things on the in terms of test subjects and things along those lines, because that creates a lot of headache. And then there's going to be online resources. So this course, the doctoral orientation course that we provide, we're training you in how to provide these. So, and these are going to be due at the end in org 893. So the idea is you're going to have a public Google Drive folder that you're going to be compiling all these things. So your review of literature project and your doctoral presentation slides, we'll put that on that. A lot of your Gemini deep research reports reference in your literature review and your doctoral project. Any documents or templates that you think may be helpful to your peers. Think of this Google Drive as a toolkit for people who want to learn what you're doing and anything related to your doctoral project that you want publicly available. So the plan is we will have a website on cityvision.edu where with various students, we will link to your public Google Drive folder, we'll link to your public notebook LM, provide an AI repository of your final project and research from your entire doctoral program, include publicly available citations in your project and literature review. So having a public notebook LM that you can share, and then a Substack site with at least 4 posts. And you can use that as a publicly facing research and distribution mechanism, have at least 2 audio overview podcasts from coursework or project, and a final post with links to your YouTube recording of your doctoral project dissertation, or your doctoral project presentation, I guess, a public notebook LM and Google Drive folder, and then your public Zotero bibliography. So that's a common deliverables across all doctoral programs. Now, for each of the doctoral project types, there's going to be different requirements. So for a book, it's going to need to be 90 to 110 pages. And I would say at least if you go over that, that's probably fine, but just keep in mind your faculty may not go over 110 pages. If you write a 500-page book, that's asking a lot for your faculty to read and give feedback on that. You need to select a publisher. I encourage a lot of people to think about Chicago style and InterVarsity Press's format, but you could go with, if there's a particular publisher format, or if you want to self-publish, again, I would say probably go with Chicago style InterVarsity Press format is a good format to use for self-publishing. And then, provide the basic idea of your book. So, with that, you'll provide the literature review, the book. All of our courses are going to require a recite report on your research project. And in this case, it's actually not going to apply to the book. So for a workshop, it needs to be a minimum of 7 hours. You need to have a minimum of 8 participants in it. It needs to be, in person or virtual. It needs to be participatory, so teach, engage, and debrief. You need to have a PowerPoint with all the sections, including participant evaluations. And a lot of these other deliverables over here are going to be pretty similar, except here you have an after action report. So then the next one is curriculum, a minimum of 1 to 5 original courses, a faculty guide per course. So this is essentially a teach the teacher. So it would be something that someone else could take your curriculum and then teach the courses based on that. And you need to have all these components on the faculty guide, and the deliverables are going to be similar. Now, an LMS is going to be a minimum of 4 original LMS courses, a minimum of 5 hours of recording, 85% of your original content, 15% from public sources. You could have more, public sources than that, and provide program introduction, syllabus, and different details that would be involved in the course. So if you're using a learning management system to design the course, then you'll need to give your faculty member a login so that they can access that. And I think the intent is ideally you would actually have people take the course, but you can work with a faculty member, and whether that's viable in your context. But if they did take the course, you would want to get some sort of, survey feedback from that. In organizational intervention, you need to be the primary lead on this. So you need to, uh, say you're a director of programs and you want to change the whole organization. You don't have the authority to do that. Well, you probably need to come up with a different intervention and do it within your your division, because you need to be the primary lead, or you need to be deputized by whoever's the CEO to enable you to do that. So you need to have an intervention proposal, and you need to have a timeline, provide some sort of change model from our organizational change course, and provide organizational assessments, and uh, you know presentations that you're using for that, and other documents that you might be using in terms of your organizational change plan. Applied research is going to be a research topic and purpose. Here, in many cases, you may need to have an IRB, and a lot of this is going to look a lot more like traditional research. And you can work with your faculty on a lot of those things, but you might have data collection, data analysis. It's worth stating because a lot of people just come into a doctoral program and they think that every project has to have, data collection, data analysis. That's true generally for dissertations, but the point is that only one of our types is, more like a dissertation. That's the applied research. So if you don't choose that type, then that's not really what you're going to be focusing on. And then business startup is, ultimately the end goal is, are you launching this business you're trying to do? And that could actually be incorporating the organization. That could be developing, the overall business plan, business model canvas, a value proposition canvas, marketing plan, and collateral. Potentially, like also a website, blog, podcast, articles, all the things you would need to do to launch this. And those would be components. One of our faculty said she's interested in starting up potentially a Christian counseling practice. So it would be, going through that whole process to start up everything, start up the website, create, the plan, do a lot of, analysis, so that she can be successful in that. So that's the 9 types. So what we really want to do is enable you to have creativity. Now, recognize that we're constrained by accreditors' requirements. Some people might take the flexibility that we're giving with this almost like a cheat code to have, I'm not going to do any, additional work and just do my normal day-to-day work. We can't let you do that. That's not how academics work. That's not how our accreditor is going to let you do that. At the end of the day, think of us as a coach that we're trying to get you to stretch yourself, farther. One of the phrases we use in the program, what got you here won't get you there. So think of us in this doctoral project as a coach where we're trying to get you to stretch farther than you've been stretched before, so you can get to that you're wanting to go to. So with that, if you have any questions, please ask your faculty member.